Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Harakah the one to see apostles and elders of great most on that rule well. Shalom to the brothers of the wax in truth. Just kind of wanted to touch on, the dynamic between men and women, and really is something that should be simple, straightforward, and just work naturally. As far as the way that men and women are built is it's complementary, but as the time we live in, a key cornerstone of the current time is everything kind of being flipped on its head, everything being made into confusion, because Babylon the Great, really, that is the core, like, origin of morals, mindset, dynamics, etc. When it comes to to this place. So looking at that, that's really why you have a lot of this bullshit going on. And for Jake, you got curses as well. There's other dynamics. But I'll read this. Genesis 2 and 23. And Adam said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his mother and his father, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh." So yeah, from the jump of when women were, brought about, it was what? For, a man to leave his father and his mother, leave your parents, being in your minority underneath your parents. Then in your majority, you go out, you graft, you build up your own, and then, you find a woman and you cleave onto her, and then you'll be as one flesh. And that's just, how complementary, men and women are to one another. And without even any kind of, anything extra needing to be added, that shit just works. A man or woman get together, you lay down. You can heart will incline towards one another. You just lay with her, and then you're gonna get with child, and that's just kind of like the natural process of what kind of goes down. But then it also says this, Genesis 9 and 7. "And you be fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply therein." Yeah. So it's it's commanded multiple times to just go forth, be fruitful and multiply. The Lord's gonna bless up the womb to just kind of have children brought forth. And that's kind of meant to just be the state. Man just lays with a woman, and then you're gonna get with child and get and bear fruit. And that's kind of just the norm, and that's like a core element of the dynamic of the man and the woman. That's a core part of just how that's meant to run. But you have a few things that have been brought in, and probably the most significant in the modern age is the pill. That's the key thing that has really shook up the dynamic. Because prior, you'd kind of have to, if a man lays with a woman, fruit's gonna come out of that, whether you like it or not, unless rare extenuating circumstances. In most cases, she's just gonna get with child. But then with the pill, you then have a means to delay, to where that's just like it ceases to be an element in the same way, which then brings mass confusion into the mix, because you then can get women with multiple partners, and then not having children. The entire approach to what sex and relationships mean is shifted, because that's basically shifted to where now people are just looking at like, oh, it just feels good, you just do it just to bust a nut, man, to have a good time. And to an extent, you can do that, obviously, STDs, STIs, whatever. But, and on top of that as well, Jeremiah 31:22, "How long wilt thou go about, O thou backsliding daughter? For the Lord Yahweh hath created a new thing in the earth, a woman shall compass a man. And yeah, that new thing being brought forth, a woman compassing a man, then brings in a whole other swathe of confusion into that whole dynamic to completely frustrate it. And that's why it's like, the pill came in, and then you had the women's lib movement kind of go part and parcel with it. Because initially it was just, the first one was women getting voting rights. The second one was like first generation. Second wave feminism was the women being able to go out into the workplace. And it was really the pill that facilitated women being able to operate like men, essentially, as far as how they conduct themselves in society. And then that's basically been the bedrock of all forms of confusion and decay of the family unit and of, that natural order since. And that's really been, what for the benefit of Confucius for prophecy, obviously, as I read. It'll be a new thing, a woman compassing a man, which it was brand new. They say, before there was no civilization before. Obviously, you had like Queen of Heaven worship, women worship, and whatnot. But then women just being out here, just in positions of authority over men, that was a very, very rare. Almost nowhere did you have that. Now is only the time you've had it, and it's basically facilitated. Like the pill is kind of a big core part of how that can be facilitated, because otherwise a woman's just going to get knocked up. And then physical dominance as well. It's like you go into militaries and whatnot, countries see like, so a bunch of women in charge, they might just go take it, run it down, take it over. But times have shifted. But then all those things then trickle down onto the relationship dynamics and make it pure confusion. Isaiah 29:16. Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as a potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, he made me not? Or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, he had no understanding? And yeah, the approach that Esau's taken with his society, pushing through these laws, pushing through and making certain things punishable by law, where it's like you try and cling to the old ways, you're getting washed. And then even then, it's like with the newer way these ideas are pushed out, you have one of the key tools is Hollywood. That hollow wood, man, it spells the broadcasting being done from there. That's basically indoctrinated and putting the minds of the people to accept and normalize certain things. Where you have like, kids TV shows, kids movies, like Disney movies and whatnot, where essentially kids are learning how the world functions, the morals of the world, through going and watching a TV show or watching a movie or whatever. But then they're basically able to set those agendas. And that's basically been hugely normalized. Even to the point where now you got movies that were released. Because you had like the original Disney stuff that came out from like the 40s, the 50s. And then, you had the Renaissance in the 90s where you had a bunch of them. And now you got a Renaissance again of all those even older them same films getting remade in a modern day in live action. So a new generation kind of gets tacked onto it. And then, even then, social media is the bigger force for like the newer generation, with basically pushing out certain mindsets. So where you've kind of had more with the younger generation, like Gen Z, Gen Alpha as well, where they have the mindset of like, an age gap is an issue. And where you go to, Gen X and baby boomers, and then you'd have people that would be like, oh yeah, my dad was like 36 and my mum was like 18 when they met or something. Huge age gaps, and that shit was normal. It was like, he was 27, he met my mum when she was 16 or 15, and that was normal. But now, even if it's someone on like 25 and 19, people will be like, oh no, that's an issue. So it's a whole new set of ideas of how people think. Esau's been able to push that through. And that's really why you have things pushed to such an extent, to such a level of confusion now. I'll read this, Isaiah 24:4. It says, "The earth mourneth and fadeth away, the world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they've transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore hath the curse devoured the whole earth," or devoured the earth, I say the whole earth there, "and they that dwell therein are desolate, and therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left." Yeah, change the ordinance, transgress the laws, broken the everlasting covenant. And that's really the origin of where this, now it's 2025, where it's been, what, 80 odd years, 80 plus years since women's liberation came in, and you've got huge issues that stem from there. And it's funny as well, because you'll have, like, when you go online, when you're on Twitter, when you kind of have discussions online away from certain places, like with London's a good example of it in one way, because the way they talk about London, you would think Sharia law was in place in London. You'd think there's places they talk about no-go zones in London, where it's like if you go there, then you're just gonna be, someone's gonna come and be like, "No, you don't belong here," and then they're gonna chase you out. But all of that is BS. Like that's completely washed BS, and that's kind of pushed to kind of have an idea and push through ideas in people's minds, and the dynamic between men and women. Because like even with places like South Korea, even Western countries as well, Japan especially, those are like the ones that's talking about, oh, the birth rate's so low. Why don't people want to have kids? Why don't people getting together? Why aren't people getting married, etc.? And the joke of it is because is people still are, a lot of people still are inclined. A lot of people get together. A lot of people would want to have kids. People still are, but there's people that even want to have kids. But then it's a matter of how the society's set up, man. It's really with you go to capitalism for a lot of the answers as to why people aren't having kids. It's because they can't afford a house, and it's because they they got to work too much, or they both of them are working, so one of them can't afford to stop to look after a kid. There's all kinds of dynamics that stem from how the society's set up, and then the inception of a lot of that is women going into the workplace, where you've had wages adjusted, where before you would the Simpsons was set up as what Homer was a single, not even single. He was a dad. He was the only breadwinner in the family of the wife and 3 kids, and then he has a car. The wife has a car. They got a big fucking 3-bedroom house. Is it 3 or 4 actually? I don't know if Maggie has a room, but it's like a 4-bedroom house, and that was standard for like what the guy saw his parents above him, like baby boomers. That was standard. Dad working, mum staying at home, and then 3 kids, and that was doable. But now that shit is a myth because of why it's various levels of destruction within the economy, within social dynamics and whatnot. So now we're just kind of here dealing with this shit. And it's kind of fun, and it's funny because Esau's trying to make it like, oh, it's like people don't really want to have, people don't want to have meaningful relationships or kids or whatever. Sex is just, a recreational activity. But then, why is it that people are miserable? Why is it people are bugging the fuck out? Why is it that you have countless kind of knock-on effects from, what do you call it? Knock-on effects from from the onset of Esau getting in power and then changing up, switching up everything. Because why? That's really the root cause of why these things are a mess. It's like and that's the thing is with the kingdom, it's gonna shift back to where that simplicity can just be enacted on again. And then with that, as soon as that simplicity, that's the thing is you go to the third world where they have a degree of that simplicity. People having 5, 6 kids, just getting together, shacking up when they're young, and doing what they do. So it's really just Esau's come in and frustrated it, but then it's still there. It will very easily just come back into play, man. Women still desirous of men, wanting to get railed and get knocked up, and then sit at home barefoot and pregnant, baking cookies, looking after the youths, man. Like that's a very fucking real thing, which Esau would make you think that don't exist. But then that's why we need the kingdom. We need to get the fuck out of here, man. But yeah, I leave it there. Shalom.